All right, hello everyone. This is day 2 of the chapter 5A practice test. And so we're starting here on page 2, and I'm looking at number 7 and 8. So as we are looking at these two, we are trying to talk about our zeros and our multiplicity. So reminder, what we're going to do is I'm going to take down each x and set it equal to 0. And we're going to ignore our powers right now. So I'm going to say 3x equals 0. And x plus 2 equals 0, and 3x minus 4 equals 0. This x right here, this one equals 0. This one right here equals -2. And this one is solved in 2 steps, so I have to add the 4 and divide by 3, so x is going to equal 4/3. Okay, so that represents all of our zeros. So I'm going to put those up over here. Okay, so I have 0, -2, and 4/3. And then what we do to look at our multiplicity, we really look at our powers. So this one right here, this represents our 0 answer. It has a power of 2, so that means it's happening twice. Our next one has a 3 here, so that means our -2 is happening 3 times, and our 4/3 is happening twice. Okay, so that's how we go about doing those. We solve each one, set them equal to 0, and our powers represent our multiplicities. Okay, so again, I'm going to say 2x equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0, and 2x plus 5 equals 0. Okay, that first one again, that equals 0. My next one equals 4. And my next one, I have to minus that 5, divide by 2, so it's going to be -5/2. And now I'm going to look at my powers. So the 0 is happening 3 times, the 4 is happening 4 times, and the 5/2 is happening 5 times. Okay. All right, so you're going to have a couple of those. Now, number 9, we actually did this one yesterday. I added it to the front on number 3. So reminder, this is when you use your graphing calculator and you are looking for your calculator finds your zeros. Reminder, you might have other words or phrases you might see on your test or even on your calculator. They might call them solutions or roots, depending upon what kind of calculator you have. Okay, so reminder, what you're really finding here is your x-intercept. So where your graph crosses the x-axis. Reminder, y will always equal 0, and you are telling me what x equals. So we actually did that yesterday, so that's in yesterday's notes. Okay. All right, so now we have our factoring. So reminder, we have 4 different ways of factoring. I'm really sorry, mine for some odd reason go out of order from the current packet. I don't know if this notes is old notes. So reminder, we have 4 different ways of factoring. Okay, so we have GCF, factor by grouping, our cubes, and our quartics. And so obviously we have to look at the problem to know which one we need to do. Okay. So number 10, I see I have a trinomial, and I see I have x to the 3rd, but I also notice that everything has an x. So for this method, we're going to use GCF. And the reason why we are going to do that is because everything has an x. Okay. And so that means we can take an x out. Now, quick reminder, since we have x to the 3rd, that means we have 3 answers. So look for that every time your highest power, that represents how many answers we should have. Okay. Also reminder, whenever we are factoring, it has to equal 0. Okay. All right, so I'm going to GCF out an x. And when I do that, I now have x squared plus 3x minus 10 equals 0. Then after you GCF, you look to see if you can factor. Reminder, if you can factor, you then have to use a quadratic formula. But this one we can, because I'm able to multiply to -10 and add up to +3. How we do that is by saying x plus 5 and x minus 2. So those two both multiply to -10 and add up to +3. Now reminder, from here we set each of these equal to 0 and we solve for x. So reminder, x always chilling in front equals 0. This x equals -5. And this x equals 2. Right now, I have 3 answers, and I have x to the third. So that's how I know I did that correctly. Okay. Now, for some odd reason, my packet's a little bit different than the one that I have on my board. So you actually need to go to the second page. This is number 12 in our blue packet. I don't know what happened here. Okay. So flip page. This is number 12 for you, number 11 on mine for some odd reason. And this one, this method, I'm looking here and I notice that I have 4 terms. So whenever we have 4 terms, we are going to factor by grouping because we have 4 terms. Okay. Couple things we need to remember that when we square root, we always need a plus minus because that's how we get 2 of our answers. And how we get an odd reminder is we square root a negative number, so then we'd have positive negative I. Okay. All right, so reminder grouping, so we have 4 things, so we group them into 2 different groups. Okay, we group by parentheses. And I'm looking in this first group, and I see that they both have x's, and they both have at least 2 x's. So I'm going to take out an x squared here. Okay. And then when I take that out of this first group, I'm going to have x plus 3, okay? In this second group, I'm going to take out a 5, and then again, we know we've done this correctly if we're left with the same thing. So if I take out a 5, look at that, I'm left with x plus 3 again, okay? Now, reminder, what we do to finish off our grouping is we bring down these 2, we bring down these 2, and I'm going to have x squared plus 5, and then we just bring down one of our common ones. If you bring down both of them, we will have too many x's. Okay. And so now what we do is we set these both equal to 0. So I'm going to say x squared plus 5 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. Okay. This first one I'm going to subtract 5, and then we're going to square root. And so because we have a square root and we have a negative, I'm going to say positive negative I. Now I'm not able to square root 5, so I do have to keep it in that square root. Okay. And then our other one, I'm just going to subtract the 3, so x is going to equal -3. Okay. So because of the plus minus, this represents 2 answers, and this represents 1 answer, so altogether we have 3 answers. All right, so now I'm actually going to go back, and I'm going to do that one problem, number 11 on your packet. I'm just going to add it in on the end here. So this is when we are doing x to the third plus 27 equals 0. And we see we just have cubes. So when we just have cubes, reminder, this is when we have our rules that, very sorry, I don't really have a fancy way. You just kind of need to memorize this. So here are our 2 rules that we have. And reminder, you need to look at your sign, and that tells us what rule to use. Okay. And this one's supposed to have a plus, sorry. Okay. All right, so I'm looking at my one here. It has a plus here, so that means I'm using this first rule. Okay. And then reminder, the first thing we need to do is we need to look at what we cubed. So I cubed an x, that's how I got x to the third. And I cubed a 27, that's how, I cubed 3, that's how I got 27. Okay. Reminder, this x really represents our A, and the 3 really represents our B. And now it's just the fact of trying to plug it into our rule here. Okay. So I'm following my rule here. So this is my A, so I'm going to plug in an x. So I'm going to have x, and then plus 3. Then I'm following the next part of my rule, so I'm squaring my x. I'm flipping my sign. and then I'm squaring my 3. Okay. Now, the next part I need you guys to know is this part here on both of these rules, you are not able to factor them. The only way you're able to solve them is by using the quadratic formula. Okay, and in your answer, you should always get an I. Okay, if you don't get an I, it means you've done something wrong. Okay, all right, so this first x here, that one's our easy one. That just equals -3. Always remember that answer. Every year I have people just forget that one answer. And now we're going to use the quadratic formula. So now, reminder, this is my a, b, and c, so I got to flip my sign, plus or minus. I have -3 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9, all over 2 times 1. Okay. Inside there, reminder, we just find out what's inside our square root. I have 9 minus 36, so I'm going to have -27 all over 2. Reminder, we cannot leave it like this. 27, I'm going to split it between 9 and 3. So the square root of 9 is 3, so I'm going to have 3i square root of 3. And we're going to be all over 2. So right now we have 3 answers like we're supposed to. This is 2 of our answers, and this is 1 of our answers. We had to use the quadratic formula. We got an I in our answer, so that's how we know we're right. Okay? All right, we have one more form of factoring. It's on our second page there. I think it's our easiest one, which is really, really nice. Okay, so we have x to the 4th here. So reminder, the only way to get x to the 4th is by taking x squared times x squared. And then reminder, the only way we can factor, excuse me, is if it equals 0. So I have to subtract that 63. Oop. And now we're going to factor. So as I said, the only way to get x to the 4th is we need to have x squared times x squared. To multiply to -63 and to add up to -2, we need to have -9 and +7. So those multiply to -63, they add up to -2. And then reminder, we're just going to take both of these and set them equal to 0. Now, right now, I know I'm going to have some real answers and some imaginary answers, because both of these to solve, you will have to square root. So this one on the left, I'm going to add the 9, and then I'm going to square root. And so when I do that, I'm now going to have plus or minus 3. And then this one, I'm going to minus my 7, and I'm going to square root. So this is where my imaginary ones come in. And I'm going to have plus or minus I square root of 7. Right now we need 4 answers since I have x to the 4th. Here are 2 answers, and here are 2 answers, and that's how we have 4. Okay, so a big part of the second part of your test is that you just need to know what method you need to use, and then from there just follow in those steps. Okay, all right, good luck. Thank you.